I got to tell you, I think we should start with a 26-point comeback. Baylor was down 21-0, 28-7, 35-7, 35-10 at halftime or whatever it was, and still have no idea, but they found a way. Here are a couple of tweets from after the game. First of all, Monterey Baldwin, who all of a sudden appeared, 150 yards receiving. We need. And you heard some of the comments after the game. Jack McKenzie was there with the post game about players knowing that there's negativity out there. And rightfully so, a lot of negative because of the 1-3 start. Also, after the game, Brett McMurphy was there. Jack McKenzie and Paul Catalina were there. Brett McMurphy, I've seen hundreds, thousands of games. I have never witnessed what Baylor did, trailing 35-7, 4 minutes left third quarter, and outscored UCF 29-0 in the final 19 minutes. And then finally this one, and then we talk about it. RG3 went on Twitter and said this about Baylor football coach Dave Aranda. He's a good man, father, and coach. They will get it figured out. I will continue to support Coach Aranda and encourage us all to do the same. What a comeback. I traded a couple of texts with him earlier today, and he just said, listen, people want me to come back and coach. He goes, they need to give the coaches time, although, yes, he can understand some of the frustration.
Well, him coming back and coaching would be a terrible idea because he's never done that before.
Yeah, he would make less money than he's making now.
Yeah, make less money, maybe, yeah, probably. And then at the end of the day, that's the Mike Singletary thing all over again. But that to be said, it's amazing what happens, outside of some of the weird stuff that happened. But when you give Richard Reese the ball more, and when Monterey Baldwin shows up and can make plays, the two guys who are the dynamic playmakers on your team make plays, you can cut into a lead and you can come back. But I think to just echo what Brett McMurphy said, I've never seen a team go from playing – a lot of times you see a team come back – they're not playing their worst ball. They're just kind of unlucky. Baylor was playing so terribly early on in that game and without any confidence at all, and then was able to flip the switch in a way that was so bizarre. And part of it was the crowd had left because they thought the game was in hand. So Baylor was going into the quiet side of the field in the fourth quarter and didn't have as much interference. Now, I think that was more of a detriment for UCF than a benefit for Baylor, but it was a little thing that helped. And because, look, had the whole crowd that had been there at the beginning of the game been there at the end of the game when Timmy McClain made that ridiculously stupid play that should never even have, been drawn up in his imagination, when he made that place would have exploded. I think Baylor might have lost their edge a little bit, but they didn't. And here they are coming back, largest one in school history, and have staved off a disastrous season for at least another week.
Yeah, it was freaking incredible, guys. We've talked a lot of negative and we've talked a lot of bad about this team and where they are or where they aren't and all that. That was absolutely amazing that they came back to win that football game. And to be clear, it was 28 points. It was 35-7. 35-7. They came down from 28 points and scored 29 unanswered to win that game. That's what happened. And it was just beyond my wildest dreams, in terms of what I thought we were going to be talking about halfway through that game, 3/4 of the way through that game, after the first quarter of that game versus what we have eventually now landed on to talk about, which is this miraculous comeback. UCF fans, I'm sorry. Gus Malzahn failed you guys. That game was all set up to be the grand home debut in the Big 12 in Orlando with the 10-year anniversary of the Fiesta Bowl, and it was all there for the taking, and it looked like it was just going to be one big party. And then, here came the Bears. And for the first time in a long time, they created their own breaks. They took advantage of the other breaks they were given. And, for example, the play I look back is the scoop and score. Now, UCF had one of those too. Now, that was a little bit controversial, was it not? I think that play you could have ruled Dom Richardson was down. But regardless, that right there looks like it's a moment where Baylor could be closing in on making this a game much earlier. Instead, they don't get the benefit of the call. Dom Richardson's not down, and UCF scoops and scores it, and all of a sudden it's a 3-touchdown game, and you're like, oh, my God. But later on what happens, Caden Jenkins gets his own scoop and score, and this is what I've been screaming from the hilltops now for a couple weeks. You can say what you want about Dave Aranda. You can say what you want about Jeff Grimes. Ultimately, players have to make plays.
Yep.
period. Players have to make plays, especially in college football. And so Caden Jenkins, that play in particular stands out because 100 other times that happens, he trips and falls, ball bounces around, UCF recovers it.
Or just jumps on it.
He jumps on it, and he lays on it, and they have to then drive the rest of the field. He not only is Johnny on the spot, but he gets it. He doesn't break stride. He takes it all the way to the house, and because of that, he doesn't waste any more time. Because of that, you've got this giant swing versus, hey, we just recovered a turnover. Oh, God, our offense is back on the field. They've got to now, plod along and score. Now you've got boom, touchdown, and it was a huge, huge play, and they just made plays. I mean, that's really what it boiled down to me. And UCF, I'm sure you can diagnose it a lot of different ways, but, yeah, an absolutely awful taste got to be left in your mouth after that on Saturday, given how that started and how it finished. And that's the Big 12 life for you, man. That's what it's going to be like more often than not. But, yeah, crushing loss. Crushing's too harsh for UCF. They're going to be fine, but an amazing and much-needed win for the Baylor Bears.
Yeah, by the way, shout out to the new helmet behind Craig on the set.
Oh, sweet.
UCF
Beautiful
gave that to us this week. So they were great. They're a top, first-class organization, UCF, all the way around. I have nothing bad to say other than Gus Malzahn got too conservative. I kind of get it. I kind of understand why he did it, because he was trying to get to the end of that game, because he knew that, if I give them an opportunity, then this is a Big 12 team, even one that's struggling, they can jump out. He just didn't realize that by doing that, he was giving them the opportunity. He was trying to shorten it up. They should have just kept going. And then the fans leaving would have made sense, but it absolutely was so crazy to see. And Baylor hadn't, that scoop and score, that's their only big, game-changing play of the year, and it happened at the right time. They hadn't had one of those all year, and that includes 2 muffed punts against Texas before that game got out of hand that they didn't do anything with. So they have not had a big game-changing moment, and they had it at the perfect right time. And look, Monterey Baldwin made some big plays, but that was the one that was the quick change.
Let me tell you something about Monterey Baldwin, by the way. I sent a text to Shoemaker head football coach Toby Foreman. Great guy. And I said it was great to see Monterey have the opportunities today and came up big. They needed every yard. And he said, listen, it was nice. But but I want to be specific here. He said, I love what Dave Aranda does as a football coach to the players, because Monterey can only kind of blame himself for not being more productive early. And I asked Dave Aranda about that, about Toby Foreman's comment in the one-on-one we'll have with him today at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, he was sensational. I mean, he was
and has that ability
at 100% and giving it all his effort, and was locked in and was making plays, and not just going down with contact, but breaking tackles and gaining extra.
Running over
everything
people,
mattered in this game. Every yard, every 2-point conversion, every first it all mattered, and Monterey was a part of a lot of it, and that is what you've been expecting from him. When people say, why is Baylor worse than you expected? Well, for one, they lost their starting quarterback, and I don't know that we ever put enough onus on the fact that Blake Shapen is that much better than Sawyer Robertson. That alone changed a lot, but I think we don't look at Blake as though he's Caleb Williams, and so it's you can replace him. He's not putting up, crazy numbers. That can be replaced. And as we learned, no, it cannot, because Sawyer Robertson's still very much in development. So you got Blake Shapen back, but like I said earlier, players make plays, so your quarterback's suddenly making a lot more plays. And Monterey frickin' Baldwin, that's a guy that when the season started, you go, who are going to be their weapons? He is at the top of the list of the weapons, along with Richard Reese, and both of those guys had their best games of the year by far, along with Shapen's return and a few other things like, Caden Jenkins making a couple of plays. And that all added up to the best team win that I've seen them have in a really long time. The biggest comeback that we've seen, even bigger than 61-58, not in terms of importance, but in terms of the margin. It was the biggest in school history, as everybody's probably well aware by now. And you know what? Was it season-changing? I don't know, because let's face it, UCF was kicking their ass. I mean, they were beating them up early on with the big play. 3 drives and under
8 plays? They had
touchdowns.
3 touchdowns in 8 plays.
Yeah, and less than 3 minutes. I mean, it was ridiculous at first, and so I give them a lot of credit. I'm sure there's a lot of finger pointing about being too conservative, as you said, Paul, and whatnot. they're going to be in the fine in the long run. But that was as tough of a loss as that was for them. That was a win that Baylor desperately needed, not just to get the victory, but the style in which they did it, I think, is going to inspire them potentially moving forward.
If it doesn't, then, again, they are who they were up until the 29-point comeback. Here is a snapshot of Sikkim365.com in the forums when Baylor was getting drilled. Changes. Dear Mac Rhodes, the bend over by the other bay. Snap count. What do we need to change about recruiting? Fire Powledge. Mac is the root of the problem. Clean house. On and on and on. And, yeah, people were angry, frustrated, and had every right to kind of feel that way. And that's what message boards are for, or social media. And there we go with that. And, of course, a lot of it changed. And even somebody put up, I've got receipts because of the negativity. And then that turned into another, like, daycare. But I'll say this. I don't know why, because, Paul, remember, I used to be crazy about tweeting during a game. Oh, you got first down. I did not. I almost maybe sat there and was like, I don't even know what to say here. And then never did until the game was over. And I'm sure there's a few that may have said some things that maybe at the time they believed in or what they said, but some personal things you wish you would have probably deleted them. But the bottom line, they took care of business.
I mean, the message board thing's interesting, but you have a screen cap of UCF's post-game message board? 'Cause
Oh,
I guarantee
my
you
God,
it looks pretty much exactly like that. And you just flip Aranda for Malzahn and flip McLean for Chapin or whatever, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, look, there are problems with this team that did not get solved.
No,
and won't get solved,
Yep.
and will not get solved this season. They're going to have to coach around some things that are still going to be problems. You just have to lessen them. You can't solve them. It's kind of like a wound that's not going to heal until you can like go to some special clinic. Like, that's what they're going to have to do. They're still, to me, in my opinion, not a deeply talented team. I think that this is a group that is very developmental. Not that there's not talent there, but I think that there are teams throughout the Big 12 that are head and shoulders talent above them. So they're going to have to scrap out a lot of wins if they continue it, a lot like they did the other day.
While they're letting younger players grow up and start to make plays that give them confidence moving forward.
So, but you're not going to, it's not like you can just, go on the waiver wire and find that guy you need.
Well, you can in about,
but you
3 or
can't
4
do
months.
it. You can't do it now. So there are things that are going to change, but they were not playing with confidence. We talked about it on the pregame show, Smokey. People were saying passion, and I think that's misguided. I think there's a difference between passion and confidence. They were playing with passion. They just didn't have any confidence, so that when something went wrong, it was just like, again.
All right, let's get to some other stories.